Hello and happy Thursday, and welcome to today's webinar, COVID-19 and Mental Health, presented by our special guest today, Ms. Ellen Platt, founder and owner of the Option Group. I'm Jeff Stolver, Community Relations Director with Elville and Associates, and I'll be moderating today's event. How this will work, if you haven't joined this before, if you're new to our webinars, welcome. We're glad you're here. You as the attendees are on mute. However, you do have a voice. When you have questions, please note them in the questions panel in the right-hand portion of your screen, and we'll take time throughout to address them. Though I did attempt to get it approved due to the nature of today's topic, today's webinar, unlike all of our webinars here at Elville and Associates, is not available for continuing education hours through the CFP Board of Standards, so I do apologize for that. But you will get a lot out of it, I assure you, for those CFPs that are on today. Everyone will receive a post-webinar feedback email right after the presentation. So we ask that you kindly ask that you take 2 minutes to fill out that simple survey to offer us some valuable feedback about the presentation. So if you or your family have any planning needs, it's also a great time to request a consultation. We offer free consultations here at Elville & Associates, and we're happy to be a resource for you, as is Ellen. I have the pleasure of welcoming Ellen today, founder and owner of the Option Group. She's a certified rehabilitation counselor and a certified professional geriatric and aging life care manager with a span of 30 years providing care management and case coordination services to those with catastrophic injury, chronic diseases, and disabilities. And out of that experience, she created the Option Group to address similar needs and services specifically for seniors or those with special conditions and their family caregivers and guardians. Her primary practice focuses on working with caregivers and aging families and a large variety of issues and needs specific to navigating longevity. For more information, visit www.theoptiongroup.net. And we work with Ellen here at the firm on a variety of issues and needs for our clients, and she's just wonderful. She's also presented a couple of times over the last couple of years to our client care program members, and also most recently at our virtual client event that we had here for our clients. So just very pleased to have Ellen back today, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to her. So thank you for being here, Ellen.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to have the opportunity to speak with everybody today. Hoping that we can have a conversation. If at any point you have something, a question or something you want to share, just put it in the box, and Jeff is going to help field the questions so that we can get everybody's questions answered as we go. We're going to be talking about mental health during COVID, and I'm sorry, Jeff, I can't seem to advance the screen at this point. Let me try this again.
Okay. There's a little option down there if you go to slideshow and then go to slideshow.
Okay. Down at the bottom.
Yeah, good. I'm sorry. Yeah, there you go. And then down on the left-hand portion of your screen there should be something that should light up there. The left and right arrows. You're getting there? There you go.
Oh, okay.
It says end of slideshow. So are you at the end of your slideshow? Okay, I think you need to go to the beginning. Try it again.
I apologize, everybody.
That's all right.
Okay, sorry about that delay. So today we're going to be talking about mental health during COVID. So working, Jeff?
Try it again. Try to advance your slide. There you go.
Yeah, okay, very good. So just an overview of what we're going to plan to cover today is we're going to have some introductions. We're going to talk about insights and experiences. We're going to then go on to some trends that we're seeing during COVID. We're going to talk about stress and the mind-body connection, and then managing stress in a healthy way. And we're going to wrap up at the end with some mental health resources that have been compiled for this area, for this geographic region, which will be helpful. And I've provided that to Jeff, and he'll share it with everybody. So if you need some resources or information or places to go to seek help for you, your family, somebody you work with, somebody you know, I'm happy to share that. So I'm a geriatric care manager or an aging life care manager, and we work with families who are trying to navigate a number of different situations. It might be simply cognitive and physical reasons because of aging, or it might be somebody who had a developmental disability, chronic disease, or something like that. And we also work in the world of mental health issues. So we're going to be talking about that today, and specifically with COVID and how that's changed the mental health horizon for all of us. So as a care manager, we have these 8 core areas of expertise. We look at the financial world and what they have available to go towards their care. We look at housing and is it supportive and accessible for them. We look at the family, is it the psychosocial supports and things that they have to keep them going on a day-to-day basis, whether it's physical or emotional or well-being supports in those ways. We look at the local resources, so we may connect people with resources that help support them. We are advocates for them and help tap into entitlements or benefits or services that may be able to provide the care that they need at whatever level they are. We look at the legal picture, make sure that they have documents and they have people in place who are able to make decisions for them when they're no longer able to. But where we're going to focus today here is the crisis intervention and health and disability. And this is where we intersect with the world of COVID and mental health. And we're going to be talking about that today. So this is a pie graph of an average workday for an employed person ages 25 to 54 with children. This was before COVID and probably even a couple of years ago. So it may have changed a little bit, but you can see that most of your time is spent with sleeping and working. And there's all these other things that you need to fit in there. And that's just for the average person. So that's not somebody who maybe already is doing some caregiving roles, not just with children, but with aging parents. And it kind of enlightens us into what the average day is for a person. But what do you think the top 3 unmet needs are? Finding time for self, coping with emotional stressors, and then that balance between work and family. So these were issues with the balance in our lives way before COVID. These are things that we all struggle with and try to find time where we can have family time, but we have work obligations. We all have emotional stressors. You just need to watch the news, and people need to find time for themselves. So the time for self and sleep and taking care of wellness overall is something that tends to get pushed to the back burner. So we're going to have some strategies about maybe addressing that today. So in addition to the usual having our work, dealing with kids, our regular household activities and maintenance and things like that, finding time for leisure activities and extended family and friends. So that's what we always kind of balance. But now we have a number of other things. Now, many people are in school from home. Some people have multiple kids and they have demands on the Wi-Fi, and we need to kind of stagger our schedules or figure out when parents can help kids with schoolwork or with classes while they're still trying to work from home. Or maybe they're essential workers and they're out of the home and we need to find childcare or somebody who's able to watch the kids and help them with school. We have aging families, we have neighbors and friends to support and protect, and we need to distance and make sure that they're safe, but they also need help. A lot of people have job insecurity or financial insecurity. Lots of people lost their jobs or were furloughed or work staggered schedules. And so that impacts the financial security of a family or income that they once relied on may no longer be there. So that creates more stress. We're getting mixed messages and changing information. At the beginning, we heard you had to wear a mask, and we heard that it didn't really do that. So you're getting these mixed messages. You're not really sure. We're trying to do the best that we can with CDC guidance and the state of Maryland guidance, and it changes because the information that we get and what we're learning about COVID is changing on a frequent basis. It was changing very quickly at the beginning. It's maybe leveled out a little bit now. We everybody knows the health messages, the wellness messages of washing your hands and maintaining a 6-foot distance and wearing masks, avoiding indoor situations with a lot of different people. So we need to keep on top of that, but we need to understand for ourselves what is the latest information. There are people with serious health concerns, so they may be compromised. They may have immune systems that really should avoid any kind of exposure or contact with people outside. We all have our own questions. We're trying to figure out what the heck is going on and trying to stay on top of the latest. But again, it's always changing and it's hard to keep up with it. And then how do we help our kids understand what's going on when it may not be something that we fully understand ourselves? So it's having those open conversations. It's, we're all vulnerable. We're all, this has disrupted everybody's equilibrium. So we're just trying to figure out how we can maintain as much semblance of normalcy as we can and continue on with our lives and, work in our jobs and figure out how we can support others who may not have the resources that we have to support ourselves and get through this. We've all been knocked off kilter and, suddenly the world has changed around us. And it's really difficult as we're working at home and kids are working at home. We've lost our social networks. We're not out and about. We're not seeing people. We're not going to networking events for work. We're not seeing our peers at school or our colleagues at work. And so something that was once a support system may not be as strong of a support system because they're just not there. You don't have the day-to-day interaction with them. So, we have lots of feelings about what's going on. There's lots of uncertainty. It's kind of pulled the rug out from under us. Everything that was normal before is not normal now. And people feel a sense of loss of control. It's really difficult to keep going with normal stuff when there's nothing completely normal around you. We're isolated, and this is particularly important with seniors and people who are living alone. They're very, very isolated, and there have been some studies that chronic isolation is cigarettes a day has the same impact on your health. So it really is an important part of maintaining our mental health is doing something about that isolation, connecting in some way. We have feelings of danger. We see the news, we see what's going on around us. We feel like we don't have control around what's happening, and we need to find a way that we can continue to move forward. We're seeing political unrest. We're seeing the demonstrations. We all survived Election Day, but we really don't have any answers yet. There's riots. People are operating on the defense. So when there's a lot of polarizing events going on around us, so it's really hard to have those meaningful conversations that are constructive. A lot of people just automatically are operating on the defense, and it becomes very difficult to have meaningful and productive conversations. We also have supply chain interruptions. It's not as bad now, but everybody was making the rush on the toilet paper and the hand wipes or the hand sanitizer and the wipes and things like that. Sometimes it's difficult to get items. There's shortages on desks and computers and things that people need to set up their desks at home, but there's also food insecurity. Not only the supply chain, but there are people who are having difficulty on a day-to-day basis. They're really struggling with having food on a regular basis and knowing where their next meal is going to come from. And I suspect that the isolation that we're going to be experiencing is going to be increasing as winter gets here. People are still meeting outdoors and still going to restaurants outside, but eventually The days are going to get very short. They're going to be very cold. We're going to have winter weather, and that may no longer be a possibility. So it's going to increase our isolation. We have not lived through a winter with COVID yet. So there's probably going to be even more stress on the system and on individuals. So 70% of Americans say that the US economy is a source of stress, and that's compared to 46% who said that same thing in 2019. The stress that we're experiencing now has been equated to very similar to the Great Recession of 2008. So there's lots of people with lots of insecurity in jobs, in finances, in food, and in things that they maybe took for granted on a day-to-day basis is no longer something they can easily access. 67% of Americans say that the US government's response to the crisis itself is a source of stress. More than 1/3 of Americans have displayed clinical signs of anxiety, depression, or both just since the coronavirus pandemic. We know that seniors and people who are isolated have taken a hit. They are a very vulnerable population. They have lots of health conditions that maybe make them more susceptible to COVID if they are exposed to it. But what we're finding is actually taking a lot of this in stride. They have lived through a lot, and they have a lot of coping skills and a lot of life experiences that have made them very resilient. So this is just another blip on their screen because they have a long life of lots of really, really bad situations, and they've been able to kind of just take it in stride and go with the flow. So we've found that in terms of the mental health issues, other than the isolation, it has not affected them as bad as you would think. The high distress group we're finding is that the age group of 18 to 29 are not taking it so well. They don't have the life experiences to put it in perspective. Their peer group is very different. A lot of times their peer group is virtual, has been virtual, and it may be people that they consider their friends but are not people that they meet with in person. So they tended to be more isolated and less interactive because a lot of what they do is virtual, and it's really hard. It's easy for them with the social media to stay connected, but their relationships are different with people. And we're finding that the long-term effects of a collective disaster like this can potentially last decades. It has a ripple effect in terms of mental health, in terms of service provision, in terms of economics, and in terms of individual finances. So we're going to be seeing this for a while to come. Hopefully we're going to be able to find where additional supports are coming from. And we are seeing, with COVID, we are seeing more mental health supports, being lined up because of the need. But what we're seeing are increases in domestic violence. Families are home together, and there's not a lot of individual time or alone time. So we're seeing spikes in domestic violence. We're seeing spikes in substance abuse and relapse from people who had prior experiences with substance abuse. We're finding increased anxiety and stress at all levels, at all ages, and all stages, all races. Everybody is being stressed. Everybody's life has been different for things that were supposed to happen in 2020 and didn't. We're seeing an increase in suicide rates. We're seeing increased psychiatric rates with people that had pre-existing psychiatric conditions. Lots of marital issues and lots of bankruptcy. So this increases the stress and the pull and the weight that it has on all of us as a whole and all of us as individuals. So prior to COVID, the stress statistics that we were seeing is that more than 40% of American adults suffer from stress-related health conditions. 90% of all initial doctor consultations were usually related to some stress-related issue. 80% of all employees found their jobs or their work environment moderately stressful. And it was estimated that as much as $300 billion are lost by American corporations each year due to stress-related issues and employees' missed productivity and things like that. So this was prior to COVID, and we can pretty much assume that this has increased many times over. So I want to talk a little bit today about the physiological aspects. There is a mind-body stress connection. Studies have consistently shown that we have altered general health, increased emergency room or physician visits, increased blood pressure, altered immune function, sleep deprivation, shorter telomeres, which are parts of our DNA that increase the rate of aging and decrease life expectancy. And we're also seeing a great increase of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So that is kind of connected to our fight or flight. And in our years as cavemen and cavewomen, the cortisol served a function. It either prepared us to fight or flee, run away and become safe. And so we don't have to do that right now, but we're getting that cortisol in our body and it's building up. And we have to find healthy ways to de-stress and get that cortisol out of our body. Otherwise, it's going to be harming us physically and mentally. Many health problems are caused or exacerbated by stress. Pain can worsen. We've seen heart disease, we've seen obesity, digestive problems, sleep disturbance, whether it's sleeping too much or not enough, depression and anxiety, of course, we've talked about that a lot, and autoimmune diseases and skin conditions. So a lot of that is caused by stress. So the signs of stress that we want to look at in ourselves and with others are denial, people saying, I'm fine, nothing's wrong. Something's wrong. We're all going through a major pandemic and our lives have been changed very much. So it does create a lot of stress and anxiety and angst that affects us in that mind-body connection. People get angry, they get upset, they're grieving, they're going through stages of grief by missing things that they had anticipated to happen in 2020 or maybe even 2021. People may withdraw socially, but they're also socially isolated in general because of the circumstances. Anxiety and depression, exhaustion or fatigue, sleeplessness, irritability, lack of concentration, and a variety of health problems or new health problems that arise. So these are some of the warning signs that you might want to look out for in yourself or someone else that you're close to. There's a variety of symptoms, and a lot of these we've talked about, and this is how it manifests itself in your day-to-day life. You may feel overwhelmed, overeating, undereating, weight gain, weight loss, trouble coping, affecting our relationships in many ways. It's disrupted our daily routine. It's difficult to manage, and we need to find ways that we can have some sense of structure and normalcy in our day in a very abnormal world. So some of the unhealthy coping strategies that people tend to draw to is just withdrawing from friends or families or activities, zoning out for hours in front of the TV or the computer or social media, not having a big variety of activities, putting off the things that you need to do, filling up the every minute of the day with something like TV or something that's not that productive to avoid facing the issues or the problems or accomplishing tasks that just need to be done. That often ends up with angry outbursts and physical violence and taking stress out on others, and that's why we're seeing an increase in domestic violence. So some people use coping strategies, and there are ones that may temporarily reduce stress, but they're not productive in the long run. They can actually create more damage. And that is smoking, drinking too much, overeating, undereating, using pills to relax, whether the pills are prescribed or not prescribed, sleeping too much or not sleeping at all. So they may give temporary relief, but in the long run, they're not as productive as we would like them to be. You may see it in the workplace, people not meeting their deadlines, having difficulty focusing, not caring for themselves, not being able to, they're not reliable, or they're withdrawing from your groups, and it will affect relationships both at work and at home. You may see that they're using unhealthy coping techniques and aggression or violence. Something that I've implemented since the beginning of COVID with my work team is that we have weekly Zoom meetings. And I know people have been Zoomed out, but our team has really found them to be very helpful. A great way to connect, especially at the beginning when there was so much uncertainty and mixed messages and concerns about, are they going to have a job tomorrow, and am I going to be supported, and how am I going to support my family when I don't even know what's happening with me. And so we've actually implemented something that has continued to this day, and we start our weekly meetings with a one-word check-in, and it allows us to just, everybody can come to the table with what their word is for that day. It could be, it's great, I'm feeling good, I'm feeling terrible, and people are able to share and support each other. And we've had some of our team members take that home, and they do it around the dinner tables just to reconnect at the end of the day. And it kind of gives you the finger on the pulse to see what's going on with that person that day. And that's, that's a helpful strategy, is just sort of, it starts that conversation with others just to see how they're doing. And you're able to share how you're doing as well. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that you're helping yourself first. When you go in an airplane, the flight attendant gives the spiel about putting the oxygen mask on you first, because you need to be able to be in a good position to be able to help others. So it's very much the same thing when you're dealing with the stress and anxiety and the situation that we find ourselves in today. Well, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. Really important to educate yourself and know what your resources are. Know what's happening around you. Know what you have to tap into to support yourself or your family, whether it's through your work, whether it's through community organizations, whether it's through your medical benefits where you can get help that way. But it's important to ask for help. A lot of people kind of go it alone and find themselves in a really bad position down the road. Getting help now and kind of building that infrastructure to support you going forward is really a smart thing to do, and it's making the time and taking the time to do that for yourself and it's difficult. Surely difficult when you've got all these other tasks on your plate right now. Making sure that you're getting outdoors when you can. Get fresh air, connect with nature is really important. Staying connected with people that are important in your life that may not live in your house, but you're trying to socially distance from. One of the things that we've implemented is what's called a grandpad, and it's an iPad or a tablet for a grandparent. So it's super simple technologies for those who are not technologically savvy, and allows them to stay connected and have video chats and things like that with their loved ones. And it doesn't take a lot of knowledge with the technology, so it's easy for them to just get on and connect with their loved ones and actually see them and not just to hear them on the phone. Can also share pictures and things like that. We want to make sure that we have some kind of regular schedule for eating, sleeping, and exercising. The average person is getting up 75 minutes later every day, or at 75 minutes later than they did earlier. And, our schedules are kind of off kilter, and our work schedules, some people are getting up and tag teaming with their spouse, and one works early in the morning to midday, the other one works midday to late at night. Everybody's got a different scenario, and they're just trying to figure out how it is the best balance for their particular circumstances and their family. But building time into that schedule for stress reduction, maybe some alone time, maybe some meditative practices and deep breathing, taking some time to do some planning and figuring out how we're going to get through the next couple of weeks and being a little bit proactive. I think at first everybody was really reactive and everybody was trying to figure out which end was up. Now we have a little bit of a sense of something we can predict, and so doing some planning so that you're being more proactive in your next steps. But we have to be realistic. We have to give ourselves a break because things are not going like we're used to them going, and allowing ourselves the ability to just have a little bit of grace and figure out some workarounds and be creative so that we can make this current situation a little bit more manageable. Ways to help your family or maybe close friends is just checking in with them regularly, maybe doing that one-word check-in or just asking questions, just seeing how they are, taking the time to listen and really acknowledge their stress. Just knowing that somebody else is experiencing some stress is supportive in a way. Maybe helping somebody with structure, creating a structure or schedule for the kids, or scheduling who gets to use the computer for whatever they need to do for work or school. Again, keeping educated on what's out there, knowing what your resources are, knowing who's available to help if needed, keeping your team connected, and whether that's work, whether that's your immediate family, extended family, or just friends. Staying connected is really important, and doing that in a way that works for you. I ran up to the local store and realized that there were people sitting in the middle of the parking lot with their lawn chairs, and they all had gotten a cup of coffee, and that was the way that they were connecting today. So people can be creative. It's just finding a way to stay connected. Encourage your spouses, your friends, your family to take care of themselves as well. If you see that they need a break, maybe offer to help, somehow prepare a meal or do something like that. Setting a good example for your kids and your immediate family of keeping that structure, exercising and letting off steam, maybe doing group yoga in front of the TV. There's lots of things that you can Google at no expense, and classes to take, or exercise or meditation, and there's lots of ways to do that, to find that way to take care of yourself and have some downtime. And all of those are activities that in a healthy way get rid of those cortisol, the cortisol that's in our body and the stress that's going on within us. Finding ways to be productive again, whether it's work, coming up with a new hobby, or studying something new. What we want to do really is simplify our to-do list. And sometimes that's really hard to do, but I've had lots of people say, yeah, that just doesn't seem so important anymore. I think I'm not going to do that. Time blocking, and again, it's really putting it on your schedule and blocking out this 2-hour time is time that I'm going to spend for me, whatever it is, whether it's for meditation, for learning something new, for doing a little bit of research to figure out a problem that you're trying to solve, but also sharing with your team, your family, people around you, that this is time that you need to block off for yourself. Encourage others to do the same. Try to facilitate that so people can come from a really strong place from within. Getting rid of those unrealistic expectations. I was going to be taking a trip to Germany in August, which was my bucket list trip, and it didn't happen. I realized early on that it was unrealistic that I was going to go. This is something I've been planning on for a long time. We all have had experiences like that, and it's just, it's not realistic that I'm going to be going even in the next year, but I still plan to do it, and that's a little bit of hope there at the end of all of this, my reward. Controlling your environment, the environment that you can. So you're able to control who comes in and out of your house. You're able to control, how it's cleaned and blocking that time and doing things like that. So it really is just being mindful about it and just putting that into place, implementing that plan. Minimizing exposure to the news. Too much news is not good for any of us, because a lot of it tends to be on the negative side and just creates more stress and anxiety. So minimizing our exposure, listening so that you educate yourself and knowing what you need to know, but then not just having it drone on throughout the evening. And it's not really good for kids either. It creates a lot of anxiety for them. So being open with the kids, having those conversations, putting it into perspective for them, but not just having that news go on and on and on in the background. Again, we're practicing social distancing, washing our hands, all those things that we've gotten drilled into us. And it's just making sure that we continue to do that in all of our situations. We want to minimize risk associated with contact with others who may be exposed. And what we're doing is we're taking the focus off of what we can't control for now and on to the things that we can control. So we want to be kinder to ourselves more non-judgmental, we may need to extend that to others as well. We've got to be good problem solvers, be really creative and flexible in what we're doing and how we get it done. It's probably very different than what we did 9 months ago. But if we're getting it done and solving our problems and, fulfilling our obligations, it's okay to have some workarounds and do it in a different way. Having a positive attitude, finding the humor. One of my favorite jokes that I've heard through this is that the worst purchase of 2019 was a 2020 calendar, which is, you just have to find the humor. Hopefully we can buy our 2021 calendars and be able to put some stuff on it. So we're going to be hopeful, we're going to be optimistic, we're going to be mindful and see how we can control the things that we can, take our focus off what we can't control for now, but just be educated and mindful in our actions and our decisions. So we want to be sure that we're good communicators, whether with it's our team at work or whether with it's our families and friends. We want to clarify and express emotions. Again, it's having those open, honest communications. Do it at a time when people are not emotionally charged and they're much more meaningful. Maybe having those conversations around the dinner table or just checking in with somebody early in the morning before work or in the evening before bed. It's just clarifying and making sure that your finger is on the pulse with the people that you love. Don't make assumptions though. Somebody says they're fine, they could be in denial. You don't want to just assume if they say they're fine, they're fine. If you're seeing some of those signs and symptoms that we talked about, you might want to take the next step and open up a conversation. Maybe a more difficult conversation is just making sure that they're okay and offering help or support in some way. Be intentional. Share your experiences, show your vulnerability, inquire what their experience is. So we don't want to just assume we know what they're thinking. We want to ask and ask some open-ended questions where they might elaborate a little bit more, and we might find some nuggets that help us. We might be able to share some nuggets that help them, and we might be able to uncover something, some disruption that maybe is unsettling that we might be able to help with. So we want to be intentional about our sleep, how many hours of sleep we're getting, that it's sort of around the same time that we get up and go to sleep every day. We want to make sure that our food intake is of a good quality and on a regular schedule. Caffeine, because those are things that affect how we react to things. We want to schedule in exercise, find that balance in our life activities. And these are all things that we probably struggled with before COVID, but it's even more important now than ever before. And tracking goals, monitoring and reassessing. A lot of people just are doing journals, either written journals or maybe tracking, the days that they exercise and how much or how many steps they take, and being more mindful about it. Again, scheduling it into our days and surrounding ourselves with support. And a great way to do that is find an accountability partner. Might be somebody at work, might be your spouse, it might be a friend, and it's somebody that you can check in with, and you're tracking, helping each other, and you're getting that social interaction, you're getting the exercise, and you're having somebody that you can kind of de-stress with. So you can do more than one thing at a time. You can multitask in situations like that, but surrounding yourself with a really good support team, people who understand
Ellen? Ellen, it seems like we may have lost your audio.
Explore and are a great way to decrease stress and just de-stress. Exploring new hobbies. I know a lot of people, enjoy gardening and doing outdoor things, and there's a shortage in supply of lawn furniture and fire pits and grills and things like that because people took advantage of the outdoors and finding ways to connect with people outdoors. And since they're spending so much time at home, they wanted to beautify their gardens. And so a lot of people did that. Playing an instrument. If you do that, learning a new instrument if you don't. That's a great way, again, to maintain cognition and exercise a different part of the brain. Having fun, whatever that means. It might be online games. We've done some games where you set it up on your cell phone and you can play games with somebody in a different location. It's like trivia on your TV screen, but then you put in your answers and you get to ask the questions and answer questions, and it ends up being fun. We've done some cooking classes with a friend who is a chef, and we've created that on Zoom and gave us the recipes ahead of time, and we all made it together at the same time. So it's like figuring out what's fun for you. What's something that you enjoy, maybe something you want to learn or a hobby, and that's kind of a fun way to do it. It's going to get difficult as we head into the holidays, is figuring out how do we maintain those rituals and traditions that are really ingrained in our families and really important to us, but we might not be able to do them in the same way. So people have gotten very creative. We've had virtual weddings and we've had, lots of gatherings in a virtual way, but drive-by, not too long ago, I was involved in a drive-by 102-year-old birthday party. So it's just figuring out what works with you. If the weather's nice, it'd be great to have it outdoors. Maybe it's getting together in smaller groups at a time. Maybe it's continuing the cooking, baking, or things like that are important, and dropping off cookies at somebody's house so they can still partake in maybe a tradition or ritual that you had as a family, but just had to do it in a different way. Walking and exercise, jogging, running, biking are all great ways to de-stress and get some exercise, move your body, enjoying nature. And again, that's where we talked about getting that accountability partner, somebody that you can walk with and talk with and interact with. This picture was taken before COVID. We may wear a mask, we may walk a little bit farther apart, but you can still hear each other and enjoy each other's company. Having lunch or coffee with a friend outdoors. Finding support around you. Again, we've talked a lot about that as just being intentional and sharing with people. Listening to music. Music is a great way to de-stress, and in particular, Baroque music. I don't know if you've ever heard about the Mozart effect, but there's lots and lots of research showing that it helps exercise both the left and the right side of the brain, and it's a great way to de-stress. So listening to that, maybe meditating to it, doing some deep breathing while you're listening to it. Exploring art, doodling, journaling, reading. It could be reading just for fun, or it could be reading to learn a new task. There's lots of online courses where you can learn something new. It may bolster what you do at work, or it may be just a personal interest of something that you want to learn about and expand your horizons. So I know you're saying, Ellen, this is wonderful, but how do I fit that in my daily life? I don't have a second to myself. And again, it's time blocking and scheduling. It's being mindful and setting that time, sharing with others that you need that time, and helping for others to facilitate their time alone as well, or to do the things that they want to pursue, so that we all come back better and stronger. You can practice while you're doing other things. While you're waiting in line, you can do some deep breathing exercises at the grocery store instead of stressing about it. Being mindful, not zoning out. Avoid practicing while you're sleepy. It's really difficult to do that. Make sure you're well rested. Expect ups and downs. Expect to get off track sometimes. Tracking in a journal is a good way to kind of keep yourself on track. And again, surround yourself with that supportive network that's going to help you make it happen. Ways to stay engaged during COVID, using technology to communicate with others. And I know some people are kind of zoomed out. They're tired with the virtual experience, but there are ways to kind of stay connected, and we've talked about a lot of those. And I'd love to say that we haven't talked about, which is a great way to stay connected with others. And the old-timey pen pal is a great way too. And we've started a pen pal letter writing campaign for some of our older clients who are really home alone. They may be elder orphans, or they may have family that's out of town, or just doesn't want to expose them, or perhaps they're essential personnel and they don't want to bring anything home to their aging parents. Having a phone buddy instead of a pen pal, same kind of thing. But those are other ways to stay connected, and helping people who are isolated. Maybe connecting your kids with an older adult in the neighborhood so that they can have that intergenerational activity or interaction. Learning something new, again, maintaining that cognition, whether it's a hobby, a language, an instrument, learning about history or a puzzle or travel. There's endless things that we could look into. And if anybody would like to share some of the things that they've discovered, I'd love to hear that as well. We want to maintain our brain health. So not only the cognition that we were talking about, but trying something new and novel is really important. So just like you may do weightlifting on your arms and you may do leg presses, you're exercising different muscles. Our brain essentially has different muscles too. And so doing puzzles or crossword puzzles or manipulatives with your hands, maybe sometime a craft or a brain game, reading, exercise, nutrition, all these things are ways to maintain your brain health. And so here are some resources that I'd like to share with you. And again, this is handout that I've given to Jeff, and he's can share it with you. These are some important places, but these are places that you can call for counseling, crisis support, mental illness, suicide hotline. All of those are places in this area that are set up. They've always been set up, but they are bolstered with additional support and some additional financing to be able to do this, to help support the need, because there is such an increase in stress and anxiety and the need for counseling. Substance abuse hotlines and Alcoholics Anonymous, House of Ruth and domestic violence hotline. There are lots of places that we can turn to for a variety of problems. HANA Safe Elder Program. I've actually used that with some of my clients who are older and in a domestic violence situation. They're able to discreetly take the elder to a care facility where they can get the care that they need and be distanced from the person that's the perpetrator. So in those emergency kind of situations, these things can become very, very valuable. For our aging population, Maryland Department of Aging has started Senior Call Check, which is just a friendly visitor who'll make a phone call to a senior at an interval. I believe it is once a day, just to check in and make sure they're okay, and have a couple minute phone call just to make sure they're okay. The Safe Elder Program I mentioned already, and the Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 helpline for people who are caregivers of people with dementia. So it's a great place to reach out if you have issues with dealing with an aging person at home, whether they're in your home or you're trying to take care of them, but they're spending a lot of time home by themselves and you're really concerned about their safety. So there are lots of resources there to help. Shepherd Pratt has started a virtual walk-in clinic of telehealth. Counterpoint Telehealth also is a nice place to reach out to that is able to support the need for psych services. There's some virtual online counseling websites that you can go to, and there's lots and lots of online supports. So they're able to link you with those, or there's certain ones that have certain groups like Alcoholics Anonymous or the Alzheimer's Association. Depends on what certain circumstances are. There are lots of community resources. Maryland 211, they have help with human services, housing, food, unemployment, utilities. Maryland Access Point, this is the 800 or 844 number. that is for the state of Maryland, but each county has a MAP office for Maryland Access Point, and they can give you, it's a single point of entry for resources and information. Mobile crisis team is set up in each county. It is a police officer and a psychologist who will go together to a home or a location when there's some type of crisis that needs intervention. So you would go to your specific county and find the phone number for that, for the mobile crisis team. There's lots of help through the school system. So reach out to the school counselors or administration and they can point you in the right direction. They have some systems set up to help. Or there's help through a variety of faith communities in the area. So I'm going to leave it at that, open it up for questions. And if anybody has anything they'd like to share or questions they'd like to ask, I'm going to send it back to you, Jeff.
Well, thanks very much, Ellen. We do have one question that I just sent your way just a few minutes ago. I can read it for everybody. Question is, what is the impact of living alone and isolation on brain health of the elderly? Winter is coming. How much human contact is sufficient to prevent cognitive decline in the elderly?
Yeah, that has been a really, it's a big deal. The isolation for everybody, but particularly for our seniors, they tended to be isolated anyway, but it's become even worse. So they're not able, you know, a lot of their friends have passed and they don't have the robust support system that maybe some of us have, and they may not have the ability to interact with technology. And so, you know, they're waiting for that one phone call to come, and it may or may not come. So they're not getting the visits like they used to because people are trying to protect them. And, you know, it's just been very difficult. And what we've found is that people who are cognitively compromised, we have seen a sharp decline in their cognition just during this time of COVID. So they're not, you know, if we had done a cognitive screening at the beginning of COVID and have to do one now, and they've been very isolated, we have found a decline in their cognition and their ability to do the basic functions. And that we worry about that because that then impacts their ability to do their simple daily tasks, their activities of daily living, taking care of themselves, but it also impacts their decision-making ability, their ability to organize things in their brain and create that structure around them. And when people are cognitively declining, that's when we start seeing that they're mixing up their days and nights. We may see increased agitation. We may see sundowning, which is happens a lot with people with dementia later in the afternoon or early evenings, where they start pacing and the anxiety just hits the roof, and wringing their hands and upset, and they're not eating, and it takes a lot to calm them down because they need that reassurance. And if they're not around people who are able to reassure them, or they don't have somebody that they can reach out to, or perhaps don't remember how to use the phone to reach out to somebody, we've found that it really, really has become a difficult problem. And we have found that the GrandPad has been very helpful in that way because they don't need a lot of technology. We can have that face-to-face interaction. We can see what's going on with them right now, and we're able to facilitate or intervene if we feel like we need to, or call. So we've found that has been helpful, but it really is just engaging with people, creating care packages for things that they can do, something novel, something different, making sure that they're eating, you know, getting the nutrition that they need. They may not have the ability to get out to the store. They may need somebody to bring that in, or bring in something that's quick and easy to stick into the microwave and not actually cook themselves. So it is a big problem, and finding ways to minimize isolation any way we can is, you know, recommended for sure.
Thank you very much for that. So everybody, now would be your time to get any other questions that you have for Ellen in. You have a great resource here, and I'm going to say just a couple closing comments here. We want to thank Ellen for her time, her expertise, just a wonderful resource. This is the second time I've heard this presentation, and I took away even more than the last time. And with that being said, with any other questions coming in, I'll be sure to send out today's slides. I'll also send out the resource list that Ellen alluded to at the very end here. And also I have some people asking about if this has been recorded, which it has. And I'll be sending out that video from today within the next hour or so. So I'll send that all in a nice bundle to everybody here, probably by about 1 o'clock or so today. Let me just see if we have any other questions. We have a number of thank yous to Ellen here for a job well done. I will say, as far as upcoming webinars here at the firm, they are in a bit of a state of flux right now. Our leader here, as some of you may have known, Mr. Elville, he did have to go in for some unexpected eye surgery. So he is out for about 4 weeks or so. This is something that happened to him about 13 months or so ago as well. It was a partially detached retina. So he's doing just fine, but he cannot do any webinars. He's not even really supposed to be reading emails. So he's following doctor's orders to the letter. So I am shuffling some things around. I will say our advisors forum for next Wednesday is still on. However, we are moving some other things around, and that is affecting my mental health as well. So, but we are gonna get some things rescheduled and moved around, and I'm gonna take care of that as we speak. So with that being said, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Oh, actually, we do have one. Thank you very much. That question is, what role can your group specifically provide virtually? I think that's alluding to the option group, Ellen.
Yeah, so what we've been able to do is still maintain contact with our clients, and we do that either through embracing technologies like platforms like this, using the GrandPad that I alluded to, and we have done a whole lot of visits outdoors. So we've met our clients on their back porch with distance, with all the protocol of taking temperatures and wearing masks and gloves and really keeping our distance. We learn so much more by seeing them in person. Technology like Zoom or other platforms give us the ability to see them. We can learn a lot more of information, but it, you know, we do what we can to be able to have as much personal interaction as we can, especially for those that are compromised, that are inside of a facility, and we are locked outside of the facility. We need to make sure that they're getting the care that they need and that they deserve. And we have uncovered some circumstances where the bandwidth of the facility just was not able to accommodate the basic care of this individual. And so we were able to advocate on their behalf. It's particularly difficult for those who may be not communicative. So it's really a balance of being very strong advocates for our clients and finding those workarounds and those ways that we can still do what we do well, and making sure that we're making things the best we possibly can for our clients.
Okay, thank you for that. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. You have Ellen's information here. Ellen, is there an email address you'd like to provide, or can that be found on the option group's website?
Sure, it can be found on the website, but it's eplatt@theoptiongroup.net.
Okay, very good. And actually, we have another question, one more. From the same person, can you set up a care plan for an elder isolated in the home?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good. And any
So
other
we'll
questions
look
from
at the entire scenario, all those, the 8 core areas of it. Okay. Yeah, I think we had a little break in the online, but we look at those 8 core areas of expertise of a care manager. We look at for each person individually, and we create that care plan, whether they're in a facility or at home.
Okay, very good. So as always, reach out to Ellen with any other specific questions. You can always reach out to me, Jeff at elvilleassociates.com. And we want to thank Ellen again for being such a professional and all the work she does in advocacy for seniors and others in the community she serves. And we thank you for being part of our Elville workshop series today. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks again. Take care.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.